Well, good evening from London and welcome to another lecture with Harif, the UK Association of Jews from the Middle East and North Africa. As most of you probably know by now, we are a group of volunteers and we aim to raise awareness of the history and culture of Jews from this region. We have a website, www.harif.org. And we record our lectures and they are available on the Harif YouTube channel for posterity. And we also have a sister website called Point of No Return, which has an archive of thousands of articles about Jews from the Middle East and North Africa. This session is being recorded. It's actually on live streamed to the Harif Facebook page, and the recording will be up on the website shortly. If you have any comments or questions for our speaker today, please do put them in the chat, and there'll be an opportunity to put your questions once our speaker has finished his presentation. So today was Lag Ba Omer, or it probably still is Lag Ba Omer here, where it's still daylight. And tens of thousands of Jews converged on Mount Meron in the Galilee to honor Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. But how many people know that a Sephardi rabbi from Algeria helped make this festival what it is today? And his name was Rabbi Shmuel Abbo. And he was the scion of a distinguished family that's still prominent in Israel today. There are some extraordinary things that link the Abbo family to Israel. There's a link between them and Zionist settlement in the Galilee. There's a link between them and the Algerian warlord Abdel-Kader. There's a link between them and the Bnei Israel of India. I could go on, but I won't, because I will leave it to an expert to tell us all about this amazing family. And our expert is Ariel Assaf. Ariel Assaf made Aliyah from France. He was a computer engineer in the IDF for 25 years, and he is now a tour guide. And we were very privileged to have him as a tour guide earlier this year, and he is absolutely amazing. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Ariel. Over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lynn, and thank you, Lawrence, for the invitation. I'm very glad and happy to be with you. I apologize for my English. I'm regularly speaking French with my groups and my tourists, so I apologize. And I also apologize for my camera, which blurred a little bit my picture, but that's what you have. My pictures is not the important thing. We'll see the pictures of the Abbo family in 1 second. I'm just uploading the presentation. Sorry. And okay. Okay, so this presentation was part of a series of presentations I had about the families who rebuilt the land of Israel. You see different pictures. Maybe you know one or two of them. On the right, Baron Edmond de Rothschild. On the left, Yoel Moshe Solomon, who have lots of streets in Israel and helped build Petah Tikva. But at the bottom, you see Rabbi Shmuel Abbo coming from Algeria, and we'll speak this evening about this special character. So I begin with Meron, with the festival of Lag Ba Omer. We just finished in Israel 1 hour ago.
Here in the courtyard of the Abbo family, a unique Lag Ba Omer tradition occurs every year. Yosef Abbo, whose ancestors came from Algiers almost 2 centuries ago, invites people to his house to dance and sing with a special Torah book. Then they make the pilgrimage up to Mount Meron.
אינני יודע אם בעולם, אבל בארץ בוודאי שלא, אינני מכיר טקס שהפך להיות לאומי, ממלכתי, של משפחה אחת אוחזת אותו. וזה הולך מאב לבן במשפחה, ומרכז מסביבו מכל העדות, אשכנזים ותימנים ומרוקאים והאמת היא שעד היום אני רואה את עצמי סך הכל כשליח שצריך להמשיך את העניין הזה עד שזה יעבור לדור הבא.
Back in the 1830s, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's tomb had become badly run down.
Thank you to Yosef Abbo, and maybe we'll begin with the beginning of the ceremony which takes place every year in the house of Abbo family in Tzfat, with the Tzfat chief rabbi on the left, Rabbi Shmuel Abbo. For more than 170 years, this Sefer Torah is coming out of the Abbo family home in Tzfat and is brought to Meron in the beginning of the festival on the eve of Lag Ba Omer. But just we have to understand who this family is, who was Rabbi Shmuel Abbo. Sorry. So they have a website. So if you want more information, they have a very interesting website dedicated to the Abbo family. And as you see at the bottom, the name Abbo is an acronym from Tehillim, Asuyim Be'emet Ve'yashar, telling us that this family is known for its truth and righteousness. So people, good people, people of faith, people of truth, Abbo family, Asuyim Be'emet Ve'yashar. And the history began in Algeria in the 19th century, when Rabbi Shmuel Abbo, who was a very good local patriot in Algeria, was advised by the French trying to extend their influence in Algeria to seek a new heaven and not stay in Algeria. And so Rabbi Shmuel Abbo, his parents, his wife, their 3 sons and 2 daughters made Aliyah to Israel in 1817. And they decided to come to Tzfat. You see a picture of Tzfat at those times, a very poor city, but one of the 4 holy cities in Israel, including Jerusalem, Hebron, Tiberias, and Tzfat. I prefer Tzfat to Safed, which is an English name, so we use Tzfat, the Hebrew name, and they settled in Upper Galilee in Tzfat. And as you know, being a very good local patriot in Algeria, he was acquainted with Abdel-Kader al-Jazari, who was one of the warlords who revolted against the French influence in Algeria. Later on, Abdel-Kader was forced to exile by the French. He was first jailed, then it was sent to exile, decided to settle in Damascus. Damascus is very close to Tzfat. Is 2 days walking from Tzfat to Damascus. So he was of great help to his friend Rabbi Shmuel Abbo. And when Rabbi Shmuel Abbo needed help to represent himself to the Turkish Ottoman authorities, Abdel-Kader helped him. The great son of Abdel-Kader, named Muhammad Zaid al-Jazari, was appointed the governor of Damascus, and he also was very, very active at selling land properties to Jews in Israel at the beginning of Zionism. It was a very, very expensive land seller, but it helped us and sold the lands to the Jewish people, mainly to the JNF. And his son Abdelrazak, eventually converted to Judaism, married a Jewish woman, and ended his life in the kibbutz Afikim near Tiberias, and he is buried in the kibbutz under the name of Dov Golan. So very interesting family, warlord in Algeria, but very, very helpful to the Jewish people, to the Zionist cause, and eventually by the end converting to Judaism and being buried in kibbutz Afikim. I have to go back to history a little bit, and at Crusaders' time, and mainly after the establishment of the Turkish Ottoman Empire, the Sultan was helped by the King of France, Francois I, and as he was thanked by receiving a capitulation regime. Capitulations means that foreign citizens were not judged under the Ottoman law, but they were judged by their own authorities, by the local consul in the region. So if a French citizen was attacked in justice by an Arab in Damascus, he could ask to be judged by the French consul and not by the Qadi, by the Quranic judge. And so it was far better for the European, Christian, and Jews. And this was in use at the beginning of the Turkish Empire in the region in the 16th century, but it was renewed in 1840. From 1830 to 1814, there was an Egyptian were ruling the state of Israel. They took it from Turkey, and they were ruling the land of Israel. And in 1814, they were helped by Russia, by Great Britain and France, and the Ottoman Empire succeeded in expelling the Egyptian from the territories of Palestine, of Israel, and they renewed the regime of capitulation, so that European nations, the Russian, the British and French who helped them could judge their own citizens. And so the European powers established consuls in Israel who defend and protect their population. The Russian consuls mainly protected Pravoslav Orthodox Christians. British and German consuls mainly protected the Reform Christians, and France protected the Catholic Christians. The Jews were mainly protected by British consuls, but not only. And that's the way it was in Israel. And at those times, France wanted to establish a new consulate in Safed in northern Galilee, because Tzfat was a very important trading place. It's on a crossroad for the merchant in the north of Israel. And they didn't have any French Catholic citizen in the region to represent them. And then the French remembered the guys expelled from Algeria, Rabbi Shmuel Abbo, and they proposed to him to be their representative in Tzfat. And so Rabbi Shmuel Abbo became French consul in Tzfat. And he gave the French citizenship to just every Jew he met in the north, so he could protect him under the French law. So all the Jews in northern Galilee turned to be French citizens. On the picture on the left, you see Haim Zaleg, who was the British consul in Jaffa, and helped a lot of Jews in the Jaffa region. So you see the uniform of the British consul. I don't have any picture of Shmuel Abbo as a French consul, but it looks something the same, that Haim Zaleg. And the position of being a consul of European power didn't give any salary or any monetary compensation, but it gave a lot of honors and power. And to the right, you see Kawas. Kawas was the bodyguard that every consul had. So they were walking in the street before the consul, opening the way with a stick and with a sword, and everyone understood, here is coming the consul, very important man in the Ottoman Empire. This is, of course, a photo montage of Abbo home in Tzfat. At those times, there were no Israeli flag, no any French flag. He will use a French flag. Being a consul, he will use a French flag. Just I don't have any picture from this period, so I had this photo montage with the entrance to the Abbo home and the French flag, and so he could protect all the Jews in Galilee and help them by land. We'll speak of it a little bit later. Rabbi Shmuel Abbo went to India. He met Yehuda Sasson, very wealthy man from Baghdad, and David Sasson asked Rabbi Abbo to stay in India and to reorganize the community there. So Rabbi Shmuel Abbo stood in India for some years, and there were a very big problem with the Bnei Israel, which was a community of Jews who converted to Judaism not so long away, as they were not completely accepted by the local community. And they asked Rabbi Shmuel Abbo to help them turn to 100% Jews, and he helped them very much. He came back to Tzfat. He and the Beit Din, the rabbinical court in Tzfat, decided that they were a regular Jew and they could everyone could just marry with them. And Rabbi Shmuel Abbo came back from Hodu. He also received a monopoly from the David Sasson to be the sole importer of indigo dye for clothes and so on. So he was a sole importer of indigo color from India to the Levant. So this helped him to turn to a very, very rich, wealthy merchant. And was also a head of the rabbinical court in Tzfat. Here you see a family of the Bnei Israel in India, and you see a letter sent by the community of Calcutta to the rabbis in Baghdad, and they say that Bnei Israel came from Bombay to Calcutta. They were accepted as fully Jew, and fulfilled the commandments, the mitzvot. They were very, very good Jews, but no one wanted them to marry their daughters. And they asked the rabbis in Baghdad whether they could propose a wedding with the Bnei Israel. And the rabbi in Baghdad, under the influence of Rabbi Shmuel Abbo, decided that indeed they are Jews and they can marry everyone in the Baghdadi community. So it was the beginning of the acceptance of the Bnei Israel, which converted to Judaism, Judaism. The main deed of Rabbi Shmuel Abbo was to buy the land around the tomb of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was a very renowned rabbi from the Mishnah time, so the Roman time in Israel. He wrote the Zohar. He's the master of the Kabbalah, all the Kabbalah studies in straight line from the study of the Zohar, which he wrote. He's buried in Meron, but Rabbi Shmuel Abbo came to the tomb and was astonished to see there only desolation and Arab shepherds with their sheep and goats over the tomb. So he decided to buy the land and to redeem the place, and he built the building on top of the cave, and the building, which can be seen until today, was built by Rabbi Shmuel Abbo. Of course, right now we have lots of building around it, but this is the original building built by Rabbi Shmuel Abbo. You have to remember that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was very, very popular among North Africa Jews. We have piyutim in Shabbat singing Bar Yochai, Nimsharta Ashrecha. We have a lot of things. V'amartem kol echai, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. A lot of things about Rabbi Shimon. So Rabbi Shmuel Abbo decided to clean the place and reorganize the praying by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai tomb in the village of Meron. Incidentally, he also bought land from the villager and created the first agricultural village for Jews in Israel. With official Zionist history tells us about Zichron Yaakov and Rishon LeZion, the first colonies, the first agricultural settlement built in the 1882, but even 50 years before, Rabbi Shmuel Abbo bought the land around Meron and settled there Jews coming from Kurdistan, and the condition where they were given the land by Rabbi Shmuel Abbo. At night they studied Zohar and Kabbalah, and daytime they were working the fields around Meron. So the first agricultural settlement in Galilee in Israel was built by Rabbi Shmuel Abbo. In 1837, there was a very tragic earthquake in Tzfat. The city was almost completely destroyed, but the home of Rabbi Shmuel Abbo remained intact, and they have a sign from God that they have to help the community of Tzfat, and using his wealth, Rabbi Shmuel Abbo invited builders from Damascus to rebuild Tzfat. He rebuilt the synagogues, and by the end, he was offered Sefer Torah by the community of Tzfat. And this Sefer Torah is a Sefer Torah which is brought every year from Tzfat, from Rabbi Shmuel Abbo home, to the tomb of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai on the eve of Lag Ba Omer. So what we saw before, and you see on the left, the Sefer Torah brought through the streets of Tzfat and then by car to Meron. On the right, you see the Sefer Torah, which was given to Abbo family by the community in Tzfat. This is about the earthquake. And later on, there was the Damascus affair, and important Jews from Damascus were arrested on the charge they murdered a Christian father because they needed his blood to prepare matzot, and there was a massive help of French Adolphe Crémieux and the British Moshe Montefiore, who went to Damascus to speak with the authority to free the Jews in jail. And Moses Montefiore took with him Rabbi Shmuel Abbo with Damascus. So we understand the importance of the man. If Moshe Montefiore, which was one of the most wealthy men in the world and the sheriff of London City, took him with him to speak with the Sultan in Damascus, the governor in Damascus, because Rabbi Shmuel Abbo spoke fluent Arabic, and Montefiorean premier, of course, were not fluent in Arabic, so they needed the help of Rabbi Shmuel Abbo. Later on, Rabbi Shmuel Abbo proposed to Montefiore to buy the land to settle Sephardic farmers. You are investing money to help Ashkenazic Jews in Israel, but they don't speak the language here. They don't speak Arabic. They are not. The climate is too harsh for them. So just instead of helping the Ashkenazi Jews, please help the Sephardic Jews. We know the region, we know the language, and we will be the best farmer you may have in Israel. So in this letter, the production of this letter is asking Montefiore to buy land in Zitim, which is a little village near Tzfat, and settle their Jews as Sephardic Jews as farmer. Okay, this will go by. So I want to summarize Rabbi Shmuel Abbo. He was a very, very special Jew, came from Algeria, was the chief rabbi of Tzfat, was a French representative as a consul in Tzfat, and bought land for Jewish settlement in Galilee. He began by buying the land of Meron, but later on he also bought other pieces of land around Tzfat. And okay, he also took care of the Bnei Israel. I spoke of it before. And then we are going to the second generation. Second generation was his son, Rabbi Yaakov Chai Abbo, who continues the deed of his father. On the picture you see to the right, you see the kawas, the bodyguard appointed by the Turkish authorities. In the middle you see Rabbi Yaakov Chai Abbo, and to the left you see his wife Rachel Cohen Tzedek. The interesting thing is that his wife Rachel was a British woman. She was born in Liverpool. She was the daughter of Rabbi Cohen Tzedek, was the chief rabbi of Liverpool. They came to tour Israel and by the middle of the 19th century. They landed in Akko harbor and were welcomed by the British consul in Akko, a Jewish man named Signor Avram Vincit, from Italian origin. And he rented the camels to take them to Tzfat because they wanted to tour the Galilee and of course go to the holy cities in Tzfat and Tiberias. So he provided them with camels and an escort. They came to Tzfat, and in Tzfat, the young Rachel was, by those times she was 15-year-old, fall down the camel. She was taken to the Abbo family to rest a little bit after her falling from the camel. The young Yaakov Chai wanted this very nice young girl as a spouse, and they married in Tzfat. And this is very important because Rachel Cohen Tzedek from Liverpool, and this is very important for in 10 minutes from now, we'll understand the importance of Yaakov Chai Abbo having very good ties with France, because he was the French representative in Galilee, but also very good ties with Brittany because his wife was a British citizen. In her old days, Rachel Abbo met Sir Herbert Samuel, who was the governor of Palestine under the British rule from 1920. And when she met him, she was 80 years old, and she blessed him, the Birkat Kohanim, the blessing of the Kohanim in English, and then she showed him a picture of her at school in Liverpool in the early childhood, when she was sitting at school just by the father of Lord Herbert Samuel. So I was very pleased to see a picture of his father 80 years ago with Rachel Cohen Tzedek, and her younger sister Esther Malka married Senior Finzi, the British consul in Akko. So there were very good ties between French and British representative in Galilee, both being Jews and being even brothers-in-law, the British representative in Akko and the French representative in Sfat were brother-in-law, married to two sisters from Liverpool. This is a letter of the French authorities which renew the appointment as a consul to Yaakov Chai Abbo. So he inherited the charge of his father, and he was very, very active in buying land. So if his father began buying land in Meron, Yaakov Chai Abbo bought lands in Rosh Pina, in Resuda Ma'ala, in Mishmar Yarden. So this was the names that they were not the name at those time, but this were the name of this locality later on. It's very important to understand it. Under Turkish law, foreign citizens could not buy land. So when Jews came from Europe and wanted to settle in Israel, coming from Kurdistan, or coming from Romania, or coming from Poland, they just couldn't buy the land. So Yaakov Chai Abbo, being a French representative, could buy the land. He bought the land, and then he proposed it to the settlers, and so they settled on and built the villages on his own land. So again, in the official history of Zionism, we speak of the Moshava, Yesod HaMa'ala, Moshava, Mishmar Yarden, Moshava of Rosh Pina, so agricultural settlement. We just forget that all this land were bought by this Algerian family, the Abbo family in Galilee. So, okay, I spoke of it before. And you may see here the buying of the land in 1882. He bought the land from Rosh Pina, just below Tzfat. In 1883, he bought the land for Yesod HaMa'ala in the valley of Hule and gave it to immigrants from Mezrich in Ukraine. In 1884, he bought land for immigrants from Poland in Mishmar, later on to be named Mishmar Yarden, and he even gave his daughter to marry to an immigrant from Mezrich. So at those time it was not used to the intermarriage, because Ashkenazic Jews and Sephardic Jews, mostly because Sephardic Jews were the wealthy families, very honorable families, and the immigrants from Russia and Ukraine were very poor people. So the wealthy Sephardic families didn't want their daughter to marry these immigrants, but Yaakov Chai Abbo wanted to be an example, and he married his daughter to a new immigrant from Mezrich, an Ashkenazic Hasidic Jew. In 1883, there was a problem with land property in Rosh Pina, and the Turkish wanted to take back this land, arguing for problematic with problems with property titles. And Yaakov Abbo just interfered and brought French power in the picture, and the Turkish just drove back and were afraid to from direction from French authorities, and gave back the land to Jewish hands. When the Abbo family bought the land of Yesuda Ma'ala and they gave it to Mezrich family, Mezrich immigrant from Ukraine, just when they decided to meet and sign the papers, they found a stone reading here. Show you with the mouse. Izacher letav man demitavte. Blessed will be the one who settles here. So for them, it was a sign from heaven that they have to settle in the Hule Valley. You have to understand, this valley was swamps with Mariah. It was very difficult to settle there. When having found the stone, blessed will be the one who settled here, they tried to settle and they succeeded. I invite you to join me and visit the valley of Hule, very, very beautiful valley in Israel. But this is 150 years ago. And the first time it was a swamp with malaria, infested with malaria. After the death of Rabbi Yaakov Abbo, his son was too young to inherit the appointment of the consul. So the consul was given, the appointment was given to his brother, Rabbi Yitzhak Mordechai. And the main fight of Rabbi Yitzhak Mordechai was against the mission. At those time, British and German missionaries were very, very active among Jews. They built an hospital in Tzfat, and where they were healing Jewish sick people in Tzfat, they just told them, you know, you were healed by the help of Jesus, so maybe you will turn to Christianity. And if Rabbi Yaakov Abbo was very active at buying land, Rabbi Yitzhak Mordechai was very active building a new hospital. He asked the help from the Rothschild family in France. So there will be, indeed, they built the Hadassah hospital in Tzfat. So the Jews stopped going to the Christian hospital, not to be converted by the missionaries. And we go back to Rabbi Yaakov Chai Abbo. I understand you recognize the picture below, King George V. On the left is Meir Abbo, the son of Yaakov Chai Abbo. So this is a third generation. And you remember that his mother was a British citizen. She came from Liverpool. And so they sent the son, Meir, to study in London. And Meir went to London. He studied at the Polytechnic Military School. And he was in the same class than the young George, the son of Edward VII, to become later King George V. So they studied together. And just after the coronation of George as King George V, Meir Abbo sent a letter to send of good wishes to the new king, and the king answered by a letter of his own, a handwritten letter by the King of England to Meir Abbo in Tzfat. Very important in the continuation of our lecture. So Meir Abbo also married a British girl. He was going every night to sing her sings under her windows, and by the end she accepted to marry this Sephardic Jew of Tzfat. Sorry, she was not British. She came from Russia. So she came from Russia, and also an Ashkenazic Jew, Jewish girl, and married Meir Abbo in Tzfat. And now we are in the 1930. It's the beginning of the Ha'apala, the underground movement of bringing Jews to Israel, to Palestine, at the beginning of the Nazis era in Europe. And everyone just have heard about, I will use the Hebrew term of ha'apala, because ha'apala is translated in English as illegal immigration to Israel. I don't see anything illegal when Jews try to come to Israel. It's completely legal. Maybe it's underground, maybe it's not allowed by British law, but it's lawfully, it's according to the law of God, it's okay for every Jew just to go back to Israel. So I don't like the term of illegal immigration. We'll use the Hebrew term of ha'apala. So just everyone has heard about the maritime ha'apala, those ships who took Jews from Europe and brought them to the shore of Israel. And here you see one of these ships, and people, the new immigrant going ashore. As you understand, they could not land in the harbors controlled by the British, so they had to land on seashores and swim their way to the shore. So this everyone knows about. Less people know about the ha'apala by airplanes. So on the left, you see an airplane in the fields of Yavniel. Yavniel is above Tiberias. And this plane came from Iraq because Moshe Hillel and others organized the immigration of Jews from Iraq, and they used the two former pilots of the Second World War, Michael something, I don't remember the name, but the mixing of the two names of the pilots named the name to the operation, which was named Operation Michaelberg. Michael and something Berg, two pilots who brought Jews from Iraq. So Jews came to Israel by sea or by the air, but we know even less about coming to Israel by foot. But there was also ha'apala by foot. You see here in the Shmurat Dan, in the park of Dan in northern Israel, you see the sign which reads Netiv ze hivrichu chavre ha'chulya shel ha'palmach. And on this trail, the members of the Palmach smuggled Jews from Lebanon and Syria to Israel. So there was a trail running from Syria, Lebanon, going to the north to the valley of Hule. But once the Jews were brought to Israel, they have to receive new ID cards and have to hide from the British police. And so on the right, you see now the map, you see the land coming from the Golan and from Lebanon through the Hule Valley and going to Tzfat. In Tzfat, they were received by the Abbo family, who helped them, provided shelter, provided clothing, and false ID cards. This operation of smuggling Jews by foot from near lands is told to us in a song, an Israeli song, Ben Gvulot, between the borders.
בין גבולות והרים אל אלות דרך, בלילות הסוחי כוכבים, שיירות של אחים מבלי הרף, גם מולדתנו מלווים. לעולם ולרוח, שהרים כה נפתח, למח ולזקן, אנו פה חומת מגן.
So under very dark nights without any moon and stars, will convoy Jews to their home, being young or old, rich or poor. This was the thing, the song we just heard. And so they came to Tzfat, to the Abbo families, were provided by, with clothes and water, drinking, eating, and false ID cards. How did Meir Abbo have false ID cards? So remember that before the British rule in Palestine, before the First World War, he was a French. His grandfather was a French consul in Tzfat, so he had original French seals. So he wrote false birth certificates and declared the new immigrant to be born in Tzfat under the Turkish rule some 20 years later. And he used the seals to forge the ID cards. Eventually, the British police heard about it, and they came to the Abbo home for a search to discover the seals. So they began to open the drawers, to open the cupboards, and they are searching for the seals. And just pushing some books, the police officer saw a piece of paper falling down to the floor. So he bent, took the piece of paper, opened it. Ow! What is this? This is a letter written by the own hand of our King George V. You remember the thanking brief sent by King George to his friend Meir Abbo after the coronation. So when the police officer found this letter written by the own hand of the king, he apologized in his name, and he apologized for having searched in the home. I understand that a so close friend to our king cannot be a wrongdoer, and they quitted the home. And on the left, you see a book written, a book for the children written by Galilee, which wrote a lot of books about history. And the title is the secret seals, the secret seal of the Abbo family, which tells this history of the seal, which provided false ID papers to the immigrants, and the search by the police, the British police, which by the end they apologized for searching Abbo home in Tzfat. And on this Machzor, on the prayer book, Meir Abbo wrote the following. You see to the left with me, Banai Haikarim, my dear sons, Tizkeru et hanes, just remember the miracle then God made with us on the 20th of the month of Shvat in 1935, when the government conducted a search in our home, and we get out of it clean, without any, not guilty. On this day, make it a day of thanking to God, and please give charity as much as you can. Your father that will pray the Almighty for on your part, Meir Abbo. So this was the miracle of the Abbo family, and until now the Abbo family is a special day of thanking God for this miracle on the 20th of Shvat. As I told you before, in Yesod HaMa'aleh, also in Mishmar Yarden, there was some problem with authorities. They wanted to take back the land built the Abbo family, and then the wife of Rabbi Meir Abbo just take a rifle. She take a rifle and a French flag, and stood in the entrance of the property and told the soldier, you are here on the French property. If you, oh, sorry, yeah, I have to just This was in 1903. It's before. I just it's not in the it's not chronologically correct. It was at the Turkish time, so they have the same problem they had in Sudamala as they had in Mishpar Yarden. But then Miss Abbo went out with a rifle and a French flag and told the soldier, "You want problems with France? Just go ahead. But I also I will open fire on you." And the Turkish soldier retreated from Mishmar Hayarden. So a very special family, our family. The family himself, the wife, everyone was very, very, very important to the history of modern Israel by buying the land, by protecting the land, by helping immigrants. And now we are coming to the fourth generation, Raphael Abbo. And Raphael Abbo served in the police, in the British police. He wanted to register to be an officer, to go to the training school for officers. He wasn't accepted. So he remembered he was French citizen. He went to Lebanon, which was a French mandate. He was trained as a police officer by the French and came back to be a British police officer in Israel. You see him on the left with a typical Arabic garment. And this guy, Raphael Abbo, was very inventive, and he created, you see the card on the left, Agudat Hatzaidim, the Jewish Hunter Society in Palestine. I don't know if you are aware that the Jews are very love hunting a lot, and they even had a Jewish Hunter Society in Palestine. As you understand, Jews are not good at hunting. They don't like hunting, but creating a hunter society was an opportunity to be provided with legal license to firearms. So they could buy rifles and train using the rifle, not war rifle, but hunting rifles. But it's okay to defend the Jews from the neighbors' attack. It was okay. Raphael Abbo created this society just to be able to defend the Jews in Tzfat under the cover of being a hunting society. After the establishment of the State of Israel, Raphael Abbo was head of the civil guard in Tzfat. You see him here in uniform with the local civilian trained to protect Tzfat, like in every city in Israel at those times. And Raphael Abbo, you see him here in his late days, bringing the Sefer Torah from Tzfat to Meron, but this time he's escorted by the Israeli police forces. And right now it's a national holiday. So at the beginning, it was a private ceremony held by the Abbo family with a lot of people coming and joining the Abbo family. Right now, it's an official festivity in Israel. Sorry. Okay. Raphael Abbo and his son, Yosef Abbo, receive honor diploma from the city of Tzfat. As you see on the right, to the right, Yosef Evron, Yosef Abbo was the son of Raphael Abbo, and he changed his name from Abbo to Evron, which sounds more Israeli, more modern. So from now on, part of the family is still Abbo family, but others are Evron family. They are the same. And here you see Raphael Abbo, but I wanted to stop on this picture. Here we see Raphael Abbo, who received the decoration from the French representative. You see French ambassador in Israel giving to Raphael Abbo Ordre National du Mérite. So he was a knight of the a national given in France for very special deeds, very good citizenship in France. And you see the phrasing at the bottom, je vous fais chevalier de l'ordre national du mérite. You are knighted and the part of the ordre du mérite, French meriting people. Abbo family being French representative, the festival in Meron became a French national festival. So it's not only a Jewish festival, Lag Ba Omer. It's not only a private familial festival, the Abbo family festival. I told you that in Israel, it's now a national festival, but it's even recognized by the French authorities. And every year, at the beginning of the rejoicing in Meron, one of the official representatives of the French government has to attend the festivity. So it may be the ambassador, it may be one of the consuls, and we'll see one of the consuls attending the ceremony in Meron. As you will hear, his Hebrew is almost as good as my English.
אנחנו נסיים בדברי ברכה מצד נציג שגריר צרפת בישראל, נגיד את שמו, אני לומד אותו גם כן, הוא חדש. Monsieur Duterte, premier conseiller et représentant de Monsieur l'ambassadeur de France en Israël.
תודה רבה, תודה רבה. אני אלכסי דוטרט, אני סגן שגריר צרפת. אני שמח כי אנחנו ביחד בערב ל"ג בעומר, ואני רוצה לדבר, אני שמח כי אנחנו ביחד בצפת, בבית אבו, וזה יום שמחה ואמונה, ואנחנו שמחים כי אנחנו פה בצפת. אני רוצה לדבר, תודה רבה, משפחת אבו, כי אנחנו שמחים. בצרפת. Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup. Je voudrais vous remercier, Monsieur Abbo, Monsieur le maire, tous les amis, chers amis, de nous avoir invités ici à sa fête. C'est pour nous un grand honneur, une grande fierté.
So as you have seen, the festivities in Meron are even a French official festivity. Here you see the invitations to the festivities in Sfat. And what is very important in the Abbo home, at the beginning of Lag Ba Omer, the festivity and the dancing is open to everyone. So Sephardic Jews are coming, Ashkenazic Jews, Orthodox, non-Orthodox, everyone just is welcome. And also non-Jews are attending the ceremonies, and Druze and Circassians. And here you will see some Circassians, so people who were brought by the Turkish regime from Caucasus in South Russia, and who are dancing in Lag Ba Omer in the Abbo home. special families, the Abbo family, who renewed the tradition in Tzfat, rebuilt the tomb of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who redeemed the festival of Lag Ba Omer, who bought the land for the new settlement in Israel, who helped the new farmers coming from Russia and Poland because they were very poor, who married Sephardi giving their girls to marry to Ashkenazic Jews. They helped new immigrants under British rule. So a very, very special family. We have seen the beginning of these presentations, this fantastic festival of the world. I hope we have learned to know a very, very interesting family and all their deeds in Israel. So I will close the presentation. If you have questions, I'm glad to answer.
Thank you so much, Ariel. That was absolutely fantastic. What a wonderful family, what a wonderful presentation. I think there are a few questions already. Well, there's one comment. Let me just check. Mr. Salasnik says there's a problem with chronology regarding Herbert Samuel's father. Edwin Samuel was born in 1825. Herbert Samuel was High Commissioner between 1920 and 1925. If Esther was 80 at the time, she would have been born between 1840 and 1845. So clearly never in school with Edwin. A possibility that she was in school with Herbert's eldest brother, Stuart, who was born in 1856.
Okay, I will check it.
Yeah.
I also saw another book telling that it was not Esther who was at school with the father Herbert Samuel, but her younger sister. I don't know how much younger she was. I will check it. I don't know.
Okay.
I had also, I will tell you, I had also a problem with Abdel-Kader because Abdel-Kader was also jailed in Algeria after Shmuel Abbo made Aliyah in Israel. But I read also that he came back to Algeria and he met Abdel-Kader later on. So I had some problem with I used 3 different books and I saw difference in the problems in the chronology. I didn't have enough time to check it. I began to check it yesterday and was very very busy in Israel guiding today, so I will check it. Sorry, I apologize. But I think the story is a story very interesting. Even there are some points to clarify.
Okay, Michal Bar-Lev wants to raise it. Has got her hand up. Michal.
Okay, thank you very much for a wonderful overview, getting everything in from everywhere. I really enjoyed it. And I would just like to make, I have a short question and a comment that I think some of the comments that relate also to the other question about the discrepancy, where in Tzfat, it's very difficult to differentiate between the historical facts and legend, and they all sort of merge into each other. One of the interesting things is that you can actually date the Abbo family to Tzfat even 5 years earlier, because I found real estate deeds that Shmuel's Abbo's father Avram had bought land already in 1811 and 1812. So that doesn't hook up with what's written in many books about Shmuel Abbo arriving in 1817, but it sort of, is around a description because he came at the age of 28. So 28 is kafchet, is koach. So, you're sort of playing with the idea of coming at the age of koach, of strength, of 28, and working back from when he was born, but actually they arrived earlier in 1812. So you have a lot of these things. The same thing we could do is, I was really fascinated by the story with Rachel, which I didn't know. You know, so we have to say is, what are the facts and what are the legends and what do the legends serve? So it's all, you know, mystical spot together, whether you're talking about the 16th century, the 18th century. The short question, I mean, I could go on other things, but I'm not going to. But the short question is your opening clip of in Meron. Do you know what year that clip was from? With Yosef Evron, I believe, has died already, no? I mean,
Yeah,
I interviewed him years
yeah,
ago.
yeah. He passed away some 15 years ago, I think.
Yeah, so I was interested in what year that clip is. Also, anybody can go into YouTube and do it, and you might be interested. There's a wonderful YouTube of a wonderful short clip that you can see on YouTube of the Lag Ba Omer. I think it's in the 1930s, perhaps it's even the 1920s, and that hooked up with and you know, it's just the Arab dancers, which sort of hooked up with the last clip. But I'd really be interested in knowing where and when that first opening clip was from.
Just send me your phone. I will check it because most of the clips I found them on YouTube, so I have to check the title of the YouTube and found yeah, I can do it. I will check it. And I like very much what you just thought, that in Tzfat everything mixed, the legend, the reality. It's indeed, this is Tzfat, and you know, in 1948, at the War of Independence, in Tzfat, they say that Tzfat was liberated by two means, by miracles and by regular operation. And the regular operation was that they just read the Tehillim, they read the Psalm, and the miracle was that the Palmach came to help. So this is fact. The miracle is a prayer, the regular way of doing things is to pray. The miracle is to take the arms and the Palmach coming. So this it's really it's fact. And even more, I think that Rabbi Abbo was a member of the Palmach and member with the Haganah. Only in Tzfat you could be member in the Palmach and the Palmach and the Irgun, the Etzel, because in other parts of the land they were fighting one against the other, but in Tzfat we have a lot of people who were member of the Palmach and member of the Etzel. This is Tzfat.
Okay. One question for you, Ariel. Do you have any idea where the celebration of Shimon Bar Yochai came from? I mean, did it come from North Africa? And did the Abbos bring it from North Africa to Israel?
Yeah, there was a festival in North Africa, but also a different community had this festival. But you have to understand that until 1948, it was not the big festivity we have right now, with 500,000 people coming to Meron, like the last years. In fact, the very big festivities in Lag Ba Omer began after the establishment of the State of Israel, because in ancient times, until the 20th century, people were worshipping in the Kotel in Jerusalem. There was a Hilula. The main Hilula was not at Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in Galilee, which was very, very far away, 3 days walk from Jerusalem. But people were having the Hilula at Shmuel Hanavi, just on the outskirts of Jerusalem. But after the independence of the State of Israel and the war independence, we could not go to the Kotel. We could not go to Shmuel Hanavi, which was under Jordanian hand. We could not go to Me'arat HaMachpelah, to Hebron. We could not go to Bethlehem, to the tomb of Rachel. So the minister of the cults decided to transfer all the celebration to Meron. And the very big celebration in Meron begins in 1949 after we are nowhere else to go and rejoice. So it was a replacement for Jerusalem.
Right. And then this whole business of these Sephardi families that no one knows about. I mean, can you name other Sephardi families who've contributed to Eretz Israel, which you think people should know about?
Yeah, I think about, first of all, I think of Rabbi El-Kalai and his master Rabbi Yehuda Bibas, because they originated Zionism. Because we have to remember that the grandfather of Herzl was the Gabbai of Rabbi El-Kalai, who was himself the student of Rabbi Yehuda Bibas in Corfu. And they were the first of coming back to Israel. So these two rabbis were very important to coming back to Israel. We have a rabbi, Rabbi Yehuda Raguza from Sobotnik, who came to Jaffa, to Yafo, and he was head of the Sephardic community in Yafo in the middle of the 19th century. He has a street in Jaffa, but no one knows who is the guy. The street is Miraguza, or even in Israel we call it Marguza Street. What is Marguza? Rabbi Yehuda Raguza. And Rabbi Yehuda was very interesting on different point of view. First of all, he decided to unify his community, Ashkenazic and Sephardic, together. He found a piece of land in Yafo and grew up at Rogim in Yafo. And he was head of the community. So if you go, and I was last month in Yafo to the old cemetery. The cemetery opened in 1832, and you see the names. You see the names in the cemetery: Biton, El Makayes, Bibas, all are Sephardic Jews. They were completely obliterated from the official Zionist history. And we are told of the Zionist office in Yafo who built land for the new immigrants. We just forgot one thing. Ashkenazic Jews could not buy land, and even if they could, they couldn't speak Arabic. So in fact, all these people from all this Biton and Amzaleg and Shlush were the real guy who bought the land, who was the middleman between the Arabs and the Ashkenazi Jews coming from Europe. And it's a pity they were forgotten from history. If you go to Yafo, in fact, you have two streets, Shlush Street, Aaron Shlush, who came from Algeria, and Chaim Amzalag, who came from Gibraltar. And I have a conference also about this first Aliyot, which were not counted in the official count of the Aliyot, modern Aliyot back to Israel. And another one we have to remember was Rabbi Harav David Ben Shumon Suf Dvash, who came from Morocco in the beginning of the 19th century and rebuilt the Moroccan community in Jerusalem. And in fact, he built the first modern quarter outside the walls of Jerusalem. Everyone knows about Montefiore and Mishknot Shananim, but Montefiore and Mishknot Shananim was a philanthropic neighborhood built by a philanthropist. The next, and if you open the history books, we'll see that the first neighborhood built by inhabitants of Jerusalem was Nahalat Shiva, built by Moshe Salomon and Rivlin, and all the name we know in the Zionist history. And we forget that, in fact, the first neighborhood built by Jerusalem inhabitants was Beit Machane Israel, which was built by the Moroccan Jews.
Fantastic. Well, no, we must have another lecture from you about this. The hidden aliyah, I suppose. Yeah, that would be wonderful. And what can we do to sort of publicize this, to fight this official version of Zionist history that sort of obliterated all the Sephardi precursors?
It's beginning in Israel. I came to this lecture about the Forgotten Aliyah because I toured the Mount Herzl Museum, And on Mount Herzl Museum, they had an exhibition with the picture from the Forgotten Aliyah. So if in Mount Herzl, the official Zionism movement is beginning to remember this Aliyot, so something is changing, but it takes time. I take tourists, I take Israelis to this old cemetery in Yafo. They were astonished. All the names are Sephardic, and other guides are beginning to do the same. So little by little, this history begins to be heard of.
Well, I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, Holly wants to speak.
Okay, Holly wants to speak, and I think what we'll do is wrap up now because the time is late for you in Israel.
Okay. Okay. Should I? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Say something, Holly.
Oh, hi. Okay. First of all, Lynn and Lawrence, I want to thank you very much for this presentation. You are very lucky to have found Ariel. Ariel, merci beaucoup. Toda Rabah, God bless you. 2 years ago, I watched a documentary on Al Jazeera TV about the war in Beirut, 1975, and I couldn't understand, why am I reading a Holiday Inn menu in French? I can read words. Okay, now I can't read French, I could read words. Why am I seeing the French street signs in Beirut? I couldn't understand what was going on. So thank you for mentioning that Lebanon was a French mandate, because I only know Lebanon is the Middle East.
Yeah, that's right. It was complicated, wasn't it?
I just want to tell you that you are surprised that this Aliyah were completely obliterated from the Zionist history. I grew up in France, and I was told that during 12 years at school, that all the French people were resistant and opposed the Nazis and the Germans during the Second World War. Then I came to Israel, and I learned. You remember Moshe Dayan, our general with one eye?
Yeah.
His eye was taken by the French bullets fired by the Vichy forces in Syria and Lebanon, because the British fought the French army in Lebanon. And Moshe Dayan was hurt by a French bullet, but I was never told about this in France. In France, every French citizen was a resistant.
Yeah, of course. Revisionist history, isn't it? Anyway, I'd like to thank you, Ariel, for a most wonderful presentation. And all those listening, if you go to Israel and you want a tour guide, well, there is a wonderful tour guide here at your disposal. Thank you once again for a wonderful presentation. We're going to have another one about the forgotten Aliyah, I'm sure. Thank you all for joining us.
I think I have even more interesting.
Yeah.
The first victory of the Second World War. Yes. Was the landing of the Allies in Algeria.
Yeah.
It was made possible. It was made possible by the Jewish underground.
Yes, I know.
It's a lovely story.
It's a great story.
I have a lecture about it also. It's an incredible story because it succeeded to arrest the Maréchal de France. The right hand of Pétain was arrested by Joseph Aboulkir in Algeria.
Yeah,
and they had brooms they pretended were guns and that, and they deceived people. It's a lovely story.
It's a great story. So just want to tell everybody about our next program, which will be in 2 weeks' time, and that will be about the last Jews of Asmara. And in case you're wondering where Asmara is in Eritrea. And did you know that there were Jews in Eritrea? Absolutely amazing. And there's also a film the next day for those who can make it, those of you who are in London. So without further ado, I think we will close. But before we do that, we will open up.
I've got to take people out first. So we've got our usual iPhones. There's something wrong, Ariel. We normally get Wonder Woman normally joins. She didn't join tonight.
If anyone wants to say anything and they've got their real name, you will be able to do so.
I just put on all adverts up if they're going to be
Yeah.
working. Here we are, yeah.
Okay, so there is an advertisement here, the last Jews of Asmara. We've got interesting lectures coming up in June. And
Right, now everyone can unmute themselves now.
okay, does anyone want to say anything? Stunned silence.
Yeah,
Thank you.
very much. Thank you. That was
Yes,
so interesting. So
interesting.
very beginning, but I will catch up with that. But it was fascinating.
Yeah. And if anyone is around to see the film on the 24th of May, it is incredibly funny. I won't say too much, except it's about the Haredi, about an Ashkenazi boy in the yeshiva whose parents only want him to marry an Ashkenazi, and he falls in love with a Sephardi girl, and it is incredibly funny.
Yeah, and
Thoroughly
actually
recommend it.
should follow the example of the Abbo family who didn't mind who they married.
Even from Liverpool.
even from Liverpool. Okay, so once again, thank you very much indeed, Ariel.
And Hag Sameach to Holly.
Yeah, Hag Sameach.
Bye. Thank you, everybody. Stay well. Come back, Ariel.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
And if anyone wants Ariel's details to do for guiding or whatever, if you contact Lynn or me, we will pass your details on to Ariel, and he really is a superb guide, and his English is even better in the flesh.
And if I'm right, Meron was where there was the crush about 2 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
exactly,
right.
yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if that was mentioned in the beginning, if I missed that or anything, but
No, it wasn't mentioned, but the fact that Meron is a national holiday was
Yeah.
mentioned.
yeah, okay.
They did take special precautions, I think, this year to avoid a crush.
Yeah, so there's a limited attendance to Meron. The police is very strict at not allowing more than 30,000, and you receive a permit for 5 hours. Then you have to go out to allow other people to come in.
Yeah.
I think they learned their lesson.
Follow the rules.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember that catastrophe. I think it was during lockdown as well, wasn't it? I think it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but
lovely.
don't follow the rules. You try getting on the through security to tell them it's
This,
safe.
this was not the first tragedy in Meron. Already 100 years ago, a roof collapsed and some people were killed. So it's not the first time.
Oh dear,
But
dear.
there are much more people, so there were much more casualties 2 years ago.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
dear.
I remember that terrible video footage. Yes, it was awful.
Anyway, we wish those of you who are still a few hours behind us, Hag Sameach, and have a good one, and see you next time. And again, thank you once again. Good
Thank
night.
you.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
Stay well, everybody. Be well.
Okay, bye everyone.